All right, it is late Friday, so it's time to bring back an oldie but goodie. Solo episodes, a lot of film talk. You know what this means. Andrew drinks alone and talks to himself. We have Estella here coming off a preseason game. Preseason film is rough. If we're being honest, we're all very happy to see the football. I'm excited that Drake Maye played well. You're probably more excited than I am. Not that interested in studying the finite minutia of everything that went on really in the fourth quarter of that game. I did it. It's my job. I love football. I'm also ready for the real version. Now, the little glimpse that we did get after Tuesday's joint practice, talked about that plenty last week with Doug, was good. Drake Maye impressed. He got to play with the starting offensive line. I think the heavens opened up and there was a big giant pair of hands that came down and said thank you from above, from every dead Patriots fan to Drake Maye. Thank you for protecting him, our future and our franchise and all our hopes and dreams. Now, Drake Maye, it's funny when you look at the stat sheet, 6 of 11, 47 yards, 3 rushes. They docked him for the bad snap, 1 rush, -5 yards. Let's skip that. Really 3 rushes for 20 yards and a touchdown. And his longest completion was a 23-yard screen. So this is a dude who went 5 of 10 outside of that screen for 24 yards. And here we are all celebrating that he had this miraculous day and is ready to seize a job. But you know what? We're right, because this was a great game from Drake Maye. And it's funny, I will tell you exactly why right now. And it wasn't just that he launched the ball on a dime to Javon Baker 48 yards downfield and had this nice progression read that led to a connection with Baker for 12 yards, his longest actual downfield completion. It was the little details that happened before each of those plays that says to me, he can start earlier than I expected. And here's why. Drake Maye, let's start with the first play. It was on his first drive. 3rd down, 3rd and 6. He just scrambled for 5 yards. He's got 2 receivers to the right, 2 receivers to the left. He takes the shotgun snap, looks to the right. He's got a little high-low combination, 2 out-breaking routes. The Eagles are in man coverage. Both of these are covered. So he goes from read 1 to read 2, back to 3. This is a backside dig, a very common route where the front side of wherever the play is designed to be man or zone coverage gives you an option on the backside because the dig is good as an in-breaking route, generally against man. If it's a too high structure, the middle of the field is often open. That's you talk about middle of the field open with 2. It's closed if there's a single high safety. And you can hit him over the middle. And it also threads the needle between 2nd and 3rd level defenders. Backside digs, very popular in the NFL. He looks to Baker, not only finds him as the 3rd read, but resets his feet and delivers the ball within 2.5 seconds and gets the first down. This was a throw he made as Baker broke off on his route. It was one after he had gotten to, after going 1 to 2. And as they said, resetting his platform in the pocket, something that's a little different for Drake Maye, who's very accustomed to just throwing the ball wherever he wants, because that's the God-given talent that he has in his right shoulder and his right arm. Good, fundamental quarterbacking from him. Next play, the Baker bomb. This one, I'm just going to say drop. Man, if it hits you in the hands, if it hits you in the arms, that's a drop. 3rd quarter, another 3rd down. He's looking deep for Baker. It's another pressure, so he gets the ball unloaded deep, has other options, finds him deep. Maye drops back from under center. It was a shotgun. And he has pressure immediately to his right. It's Layden Robinson. Big fan of Layden Robinson. But today, he gave up on this particular snap a hurry. Maye keeps his eyes downfield. He slides a little bit left in the pocket, looks back right to Baker, then steps up, and very casually, effortlessly, drops this bomb to him all the way downfield. This was not just avoiding pressure and a possible bad consequence, right? A sack, a hurry, a hit, whatever it was. It was keeping your eyes downfield, the kind of courage required of all quarterbacks, and then delivering a pinpoint pass in a way that I don't think any of us watching Patriots football the last 5 years could have imagined unless Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones had taken kind of a crop step and launched with their full body to get the ball that far downfield. Meanwhile, it's a flick of the wrist for Drake Maye. So we were all impressed with the throw, but it was his ability to reset, adjust to pressure, flip his feet, and go through reads in both instances that to me made me optimistic. Now, this all said, you want to know how quickly he can start. I said it'll be earlier than I expected. Heading into the week, I would have still said peg around Thanksgiving. Maybe it's early November. No one really knows. We're all finding out together. I'd be a little bit more comfortable earlier because of plays like this, in concert with the progress he showed on Tuesday, where the big headline was, yes, he had no shot in his 2-minute drill, joint practice, 3 sacks, 4 plays. We all saw it. In my opinion, he was a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett that day. That was also the first day I've been able to say that in 14 practices firmly. You could argue for maybe 1 or 2 other days, in my opinion. He certainly was against the Eagles on Thursday night. As we get now into the good and the bad and the game balls, I'll just leave it up on this. Maye, who I wrote about immediately after the game in those two plays, and then one more, which followed the dig route completion in the second quarter to Baker, had this actual under center snap. He took wheeled left on a bootleg, and he's got immediate pressure from Nolan Smith, a play that would have blown up Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi, who are not off-platform throwers, not particularly creative. And instead of just taking the sack or throwing it away, he hops back a little bit and still whips it around Nolan Smith for a pass to Mitchell Wilcox, takes a penalty for a hit to the head roughing the passer, and they get the first down. Was another instance, as Drake Maye said after the game, you need the best quarterbacks in the league make off-platform, off-schedule plays. That was another one for Maye. The first two instances I gave you, playing on schedule, playing with the right platform, like a quarterback should. This was the creativity in a very, very small way, in a small example, that shows, that teases you, he looked like his old self. And ultimately, again, we're going to pivot here in a second, him looking like the Drake Maye that I fell in love with as a prospect, knowing it would still take some time and development, but have that confidence and comfort within the offense to operate as he's told. And when he takes his chances, can play like we all saw at North Carolina, a little backyard ball, and do things that the defense really has no answer for, be it scrambling or extending plays outside the pocket. It was all very, very good. Now, again, that said, 23 yards out of 47 coming on a screen where you really didn't do much and only one completion longer than 10 yards downfield, it's going to take some time for him. He cannot maintain and still win this job. He needs to build on this, because Jacoby Brissett's game was the worst I've seen from him in any single day, including practices all summer. So I think Jacoby Brissett is probably going to bounce back. Not to mention he's got a career interception rate of 1.8%, which is among the best in the league. Playing quarterback is not just about not throwing interceptions, but the Patriots know what they have in Brissett. They like it enough to give him all the starting reps. I hope that the Patriots protect Drake Maye with the starting offensive line in practice moving forward. But that's what I have for you here as far as the two of them go. It was not this A-plus performance, but it was enough of a flash. It was enough of a show in the more advanced, kind of mature, boring mechanics of the position, and Maye getting back to what makes him great and telling you that I still got it and showing it. That was super encouraging. So Patriots are going to practice a lot leading up to the preseason finale against Washington next weekend, next Sunday in DC. Or it's not DC, it's one of the Landover, Maryland. But it's a really important week because this is closer now than I expected. And May's day was 1 out of 16 now, 14 practices and 2 games. But this was good. Okay. He actually wouldn't make the good as we finally move on 5 minutes after I teased it. As we always do, the good, the bad, we need to talk in game balls. Those two players who made my film review, as we discussed the notes here, and we're going to do mailbag questions and Matt Judon talk later, are defensive players. Keon White had a sack in a hurry. Anthony Jennings had to run stuff in a hurry. And these dudes are going to be called upon most directly to replace Matt Judon, who, again, we're going to talk about later. Defensive front 8, 5 sacks, 4 run stuffs. They were facing a backup Eagles offensive line, but even the Eagles backups, frankly, are like as good as the offensive line they're seeing in practice. And any kind of play like that, particularly from White, who won on the edge with the sack and a little dip move, who rushed from the interior, and he was kind of out of control, like bull in the china shop, but still managed, despite that lack of control, to apply pressure, is really encouraging. And the Patriots are going to rotate through a bunch of guys to try to rotate Judon. Raekwon McMillan, 8 tackles, game high. Jelani Tavai, both played in the edge. Those are typically off-ball linebackers. Last night, and I think moving forward, you're going to see them rotate in a way that Juwan Bentley did this too, played more in the edge, where you don't think he could do this because they're not edge rushers. But early downs, you don't really need them to necessarily peel off the edge and apply this immediate heat. So that's how I think they're partly going to replace Judon. At least for one night, Patriots pass rush was fine. It typically looks good in the preseason. This is going to be a greater than some of their parts pass rush moving forward. So far, so good, but we'll see. On to the bad. Who would have thought the offensive line is going to end up in this section? Let's get them just right off the top. Badarian Lowe gives up a sack. And part of this was Kevin Harris chipped the rusher that he was blocking into the pocket where Drake Maye stood for 3.1 seconds and then got blindsided. Not entirely on Badarian Lowe, but you'd like to think that your left tackle can hang in there a little bit longer. He also gave up a hurry. So the other part about Badarian Lowe playing is that he was in the third quarter, which tells me the Patriots are not quite comfortable with him at that position, to which I would say, great, because I'm not. And I don't think you are either listening at home. Now, you're more comfortable with Lowe than, let's say, Antonio Mafi, who gave up a sack and only played 10 snaps all in the fourth quarter. He struggled last week against Carolina and can't really snap the ball. Speaking of not snapping the ball, Liam Fornadell, third string center in Mafi's place, also part of the bad, had 2 bad snaps, including the game clincher. This guy is an alum of the CFL, XFL, UFL. We're not going to talk a ton more about him because I don't think he's making the roster. But all of the bad in the minutia of this game underscores the big picture problems for the Patriots. They don't have a left tackle. They don't have players aside from David Andrews who can reliably snap the ball. Nick Leverett's getting there, but in my opinion right now, he should be considered a starter at right guard with Onwenu at right tackle, David Andrews at center, Sidi Saud at left guard, and then whoever can step forward at left tackle between Chuks Okorafor, Cade Wallace, and probably not Calvin Anderson, who also gave up a sack in the fourth quarter. But as far as we need to talk, this is going to surprise you because we already talked about him. You got to catch Javon Baker. It's raw, man. The route running in the details, getting bodied out of bounds on the first deep incompletion that Maye had. And he should have waited. Maye correctly diagnosed pressure on that same initial drive after the dig route completion leads to a field goal attempt. And he just goes straight down the sideline. Baker's not even close, just gets bodied in the route. And he had Mitchell Wilcox, third time's a charm. Mitchell Wilcox over the middle in breaking route, man coverage. Maye should have waited. Instead, threw for Baker. Baker lost a rep. Baker lost a slant route due to the same physicality on the right side. Drew a pass interference penalty later, but is just not really on the same page as far as the details go with Drake Maye. And you can look at Jalen Polk and be like, well, he only had 2 catches. They only went for 6 yards. Both of those were in the flat. He's got more trust from the quarterbacks right now. As much as Maye likes going to him downfield, because I think it kind of scratches an itch of just like that backyard ball we talked about, he's not on the same page in the way that Polk is, because Polk has the more mature game and seems to, in my opinion, have a better grasp on the playbook. So this is not a long-term concern with Javon Baker, but he's cooled, as we've talked about in training camp as of late. And you saw that in the preseason, not just because he had 1 target or 1 catch on 4 targets. It was the way those routes were run. And even that dig was rounded a little bit. So he's a rookie. He's going to improve. This is not damning him forever or even this season or even the next week or 2. Growth is not always linear. He'll probably bounce back. But for now, it's got to be sharper if the Patriots, who want to give him more snaps, are going to do that. One other rookie I forgot to mention, you could throw him in here, but he's a 6th-round pick. Marcellus Dial. That dude had a rough night. Half a dozen catches allowed in coverage. Just really, really not good. So who are we giving the game ball to? The game ball, in my opinion, you could go up front. You could go with, honestly, Chuks Okorafor, who had a really nice bounce back performance at right tackle. And it's not just because he took the first snap and played like 3 seconds afterward and had a linebacker fully on the ground with both feet up. But I'm just going to give it to Drake Maye because it's not this A+ performance. It wasn't an A-. I wouldn't even call it a B+. But just a guy to get that comfortable after what's been a disappointing camp, C to C+, is encouraging. Before you can get to earning starting reps, you have to put yourself into the conversation. I think that's what this is about. He put himself back in the conversation. And Gerard Mayo this morning announced that it's not over yet for him. It's still open. Jacoby Brissett is going to win the job. He's going to start week 1. But to still be in the mix, I think based on what he did last night, is impressive. That's important. He's 21, and we'll see what happens next. Aside from that, a couple more notes. Rodgers Stevenson, dude had 14 out of his 18 yards after contact. More to the point about the offensive line struggles. They've got to create more room on the ground for a run-based offense. But when they want to pick up a couple of yards, you know where they're going. It's behind Mike Onwenu. Middle of first quarter. Antonio Gibson, 3rd and short. Where'd they go? Boom, off the right side. He picked up 4 yards. Mentioned Jalen Polk, made 2 guys miss. It's great. The other catch in the flat, though, showed you that his game is really not make or miss. So he got tackled in the flat for 0 yards. I would feed him just a little bit more downfield, aside from the Jacoby Brissett overthrow. Speaking of Brissett, the interception, this was bad football on both ends. It was a stick nod route. So in the left slot, Austin Hooper is going upfield, gives a head nod to the left, and then breaks back up the middle of the field. This is staple red zone stuff, staple old West Coast kind of route, up, little shake to the left, and then angle back towards the middle. It was really, really well covered. So Jacoby Brissett either should have thrown this away or thrown it earlier. But on Hooper's end of it, he's stopping very often in practices, specifically in the red zone when there's contact on these routes. And a week ago, it also resulted in an interception because he's looking for a flag. And he lost the ball, bobbling it to some more contact against the Eagles in Tuesday's joint practice that also resulted in a pick. And he did also draw an actual flag in that same practice. But my point is, I think he should have finished the route. This was not stick, nod, and stop. This was stick, nod, and then keep going. Because there was some space over the middle of the field, but he hesitated, and then Brissett threw at him where he and his defender were hip to hip, and obviously it got picked off. So not good all the way around, but I think they'll fix it. Defensively, last couple of notes, and we'll talk about the corners later on in the podcast. But, for me, backup defensive tackle still a mixed bag. Daniel Akawale was awesome on Tuesday in the joint practice. Not so much here in the game. You saw guys like Mike Purcell look better. Tristan Hill missed a tackle. Jeremiah Farms Jr. naturally came back down to earth. And they're waiting for him as Armand Watts, who, unlike the Carolina game when he played in that last drive of the whole freaking game, he was in the mix until the third quarter, then came out. So I'm still not confident they're going to fully replace Christian Barmore. Certainly not 1-for-1, but with a couple of guys. And maybe that just means more Keon White inside, certainly on passing downs. We'll see. But that's a group that I don't think you have a solidified depth chart yet, coming to cut down day. I mentioned Raekwon McMillan. He's a core special teamer. He's going to make the team. To see him throw his body around, though, like crazy, blew up a couple of runs. Mentioned the game high tackles is a good sign. It's off-ball linebacker group. Maybe it's just like the Dante Hightower osmosis kind of coaching, just being around him. Christian Ellis looks good. Joe Giles Harris missed a couple of tackles, but he's been really good in coverage. He's not been as much on special teams. Ellis has been. But it's a solid backup group in a way that I'm not counting on them to make regular season plays, but I certainly feel better about them than I did. And Del Pettis, undrafted rookie, don't forget about him. Still got a nose for the ball. But I don't know if I'd put him on the roster yet. Christian Gonzalez obviously making the roster. I'd like him to show up as CB1, and it's really out of a longing to see that again because I loved it. It's awesome watching him play football at peak performance. I haven't seen it yet all summer. I'd like to. That's what this is about. Not killing him, not railing on him. It's just to say, where's that guy I saw last September? I want to hang out again. I mentioned the core special teamers. These are guys, again, I don't think they're going to place as much emphasis as we did in the Belichick era on, okay, all of these guys are definitely making the roster. But something to keep in mind, if you're looking at spots 45 to 53, who's going to get the tiebreakers? I already mentioned McMillan. Brendan Schooler certainly making the team. Christian Ellis, backup inside linebacker, 53. These are guys who have started at least 3 out of 4 units last night, and most did in Carolina. O'Shane Ximines, another sack, drink. Jalen Hawkins, Isaiah Bolden, and JaMychal Hasty, who for my money, based on how he's starting certain periods with Drake Maye in the second string offense, might be pushing Kevin Harris with the number 3 running back job. But anyway, he's playing a lot more special teams than Kevin Harris. I think all those dudes are making the team. So make of that what you will. Oh, and Joey Sly hit another 50-yarder. Good for him. Kicking competition is really heating up. But that's it for my preseason notes and Drake Maye. There you have it. Coming up more mailbag, Matt Judon. But first, a quick break. The NFL regular season is almost here, but you don't have to waste your time watching more preseason outside of the Patriots. You can play Prize Picks all summer. America's #1 daily fantasy sports app has over 5 million active viewers, and unlike other apps, you guys, you know this by now, you don't play against anyone. You just pick against the numbers. If you pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, you watch the winnings roll in, even taking $10 going all the way to 1,000. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play for just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And then when football does roll around, man, if you think Tyreek Hill is going to go for over 90 yards in the season opener, Miami does pretty well in their season openers, that's an easy win. If you think the Patriots defense is going to show up and hold down Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, take the under on Joe Burrow. It's that simple. It's that easy. You've heard me talk about this for the Red Sox. God willing, they'll be playing in October. You can do all kinds of sports, but get ready for football with Prize Picks. It's available in more than 30 states across the country. So download Prize Picks today and use the code CLNS for a different bonus. This first deposit match is up to $100. That's right. Just put in CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, as promised, let's wrap up with the mailbag here. We have every single question answered because I'm a nice guy. Carlos leading off. Haven't heard from him in a while. Carlos got famous on us. He had a little interview with Mike Reese at training camp, flying all the way from the West Coast, and now he's back, and he's sad to be filing questions like these in this little rinky-dink podcast. Hey, Andrew, did any players from the secondary separate themselves last night, or had any of the bottom roster guys impressed you? That seems to be in his words, their deepest position group. For me, Carlos, no real separation last night against the Eagles. And honestly, it depends on the day with the corner, something that Drake Maye said, looking at Alex Austin and Marco Wilson and Isaiah Bolden and Marcellus Dial, who we know had a crap night, which happens. He's a sixth-round rookie. But Alex Austin, I will say, has seen the most consistent starting reps opposite Christian Gonzalez, which to me is honestly more telling than whatever I have him charted for, because after every single practice, the coaches go back, they sit around, watch the film, do their own charting, which is more detailed than mine, and are able to replay practice in a way that I can't. So with all that information, they've said, yeah, Alex Austin's our guy. After that, it's Marco Wilson, who looked good against the Eagles in the preseason game, but in the joint practice, gave up 6 catches. And then you come to Marcellus Dial, we already mentioned 6 catches in the game, and Isaiah Bolden, who's kind of just hanging around. Like, he's been in the slot. He took a couple snaps actually at the safety level last night, but has not, like Austin or Wilson or even Dial, flashed with a pick in team periods to go, okay, he's starting to get it. He's a bigger corner. He's super athletic. They're trying him at a couple different positions, but there's no one guy that screams to me, hey, I'm ready to take the job opposite Christian Gonzalez in the event that, let's say, hypothetically, Jonathan Jones is out for a while. I'm the guy that's next up. And so I do think it is competitive in the way you're talking about. It's deep, but it's not deep in the fact that they have so many NFL starting caliber corners, right? It's just a bunch of different outcomes we could see come cutdown day. They might keep Austin and Wilson. They could go with Dial and Bolden and Wilson, or keep all of them, or trade one. But it's none of them inspire such confidence that you're like, that's the guy. And I think that's really the essence of your question. As for safety, look, I told you I've been high on Jalen Hawkins. He really hardly played aside from special teams. Normally a bad thing in the NFL, but played single high. They've trusted him in the box. He's going to make the team, not only just as a core special team, but right now with Marte Mapu out as their third safety, and I like him, and that's really been it. Aside from Del Pettis, who's like always around the ball, but it was, I'm hesitant. You had some folks who were very excited about Deshaun Fenwick a couple weeks ago, and then that dude gets cut, and now he's back. But I don't want to deliver hype on these guys who are undrafted rookies in a way that says, oh, they're definitely going to make the 53, unless it's a Jacoby Myers case, Gunnar Olszewski back in the day, or guys who clearly, plainly, Jonathan Jones, even go back to 16, you see and say, okay, he's got it. None of them have done that. Speaking of Marte Mapu, Gary wants to know, hey, what's up with Marte Mapu? Gary, I wish I knew. It's a good question. He has not practiced in pads once. Mayo spoke at the start of camp, or maybe it was mini camp, that they're still trying to figure out his position between linebacker and safety. I think he's a much better second-level player, which would then really put him as a linebacker, but he's too small by the typical profile and body type that they like at that position. He is, however, around training camp. He's walking around at practice, always in his jersey, never in pads, observing the drills, taking those mental reps. I know Marcus Jones and Jonathan Jones are expected to be back soon. Jonathan Jones is just like a minor soft tissue injury. So I don't know if Marte Mapu falls into that same group, but I would say there's a possibility that they're just taking it slow with him, because I know that's what they've been doing with the other 2 defensive backs who have been out for over a week. Cheeseburger Posse. Are the Pats experiencing, speaking of injuries, an inordinate amount of injuries as campers at the same average as every other team? Thinking about Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones, Pop Douglas, Marte Mapu, Taki, the list goes on. Short answer, no. Long answer is some of the guys you mentioned, specifically Pop Douglas, who we found out last episode hurt his hand actually playing catch with Joe Milton, common Twitter joke turned true, is these guys got hurt before camp. So they came in as damaged goods and they need to heal and recover and, do whatever. And that goes for Taki as well. Marcus Jones, we know not the most durable player. Maybe it's because he's 5'8", 180 pounds. I don't know. Or it's just bad luck. And soft tissue stuff like with Jonathan Jones just happens. Tyquan Thornton missed a day earlier in camp and then came back and recovered. So no, I don't have the hard data on all of the practices missed by starters or projected second stringers relative to every other NFL training camp. But in my 7th year, charting, tracking, watching all of this stuff down in Fox Pro, it's just another summer. And if anything, honestly, because again, Pop Douglas and Sione Taki came in with, pre-training camp injuries, I think it's been a healthier summer, despite the fact Drake Maye has pushed them physically with all these padded practices and red zone drills and some goal line drills and one-on-ones. And Bill Belichick really did the last 3 or 4 years. Charlie Demers. Charlie, With Drake's performance last night, do you think this speeds up his timeline as to when he will take over QB1, or would it be more beneficial to have him sit half a year? So we talked a lot about Drake already. I will just say it's a data point in a set for him, right? This is not all about what you see or I watch. It's what about the coaches take in, weigh a certain way, and then make a decision based on all the data available to them. And so this game more important relative to, say, day 1, 2, 3, 4 of camp, when they were non-padded and they were practices, and it's a lot of 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s and not really in the red zone and not very telling. But this season, we also know they're playing the long game, right? They are trading away their best player for a third-round pick. They have a guy in here, Jacoby Brissett, who is a stopgap bridge starter. So if Maye's not ready, they're not going to rush it. If they don't feel like they can support him, despite whatever Drake Maye says, they're not going to play him. So this was good. I think his sack avoidance is being underrated a little bit, but you just don't want the guy sitting back there running around if he doesn't have to. As there goes my alarm again, just as we had last week. That means I have to do radio soon in Maine. So no, I don't think that changed the timeline. I do think it was a good day for him. But even if he closed the gap a little bit with Jacoby Brissett, they're still waiting for him to put together multiple practices. And if he does that moving forward in another good preseason game, then we have a conversation. But right now, no, nothing's really changed in my mind. Bryant says, there has to be a center out there that won't make the roster that's better than Mafi, right? Do you think they have any tackle upgrades that are cut from other teams? I do think they'll probably find a center soon enough because it's a less valuable position, believe it or not, even in offenses that are relying on those guys to set protections and make line calls and adjustments. But I don't think they're going to find tackles. Why? Because tackles are a top 5 most valuable position, right? It's quarterback, and then pick this in your own order: receiver, corner, pass rusher, and offensive tackle. And so you go back to 2021, Patriots trade for Yasir Durant with the Chiefs to give up a 7th-round pick. He doesn't really play. A year ago, it was Tyrone Wheatley Jr. and Vidarian Lowe. You know how that went, and in those cases, he's still going. So teams just don't give up or punt on offensive tackles. If they're remotely starting caliber, they keep them because of how important they are to whatever they want to achieve, whether they're contending or rebuilding or whatever they might be doing. So teams are always looking for tackles, never more so than in August. And that creates a seller's market, at which point it's you're going to make a ridiculous overpay, or we're just not going to give you the tackle because we really need them to. Speaking of tackles, Chris, Fallen Avarice, and Matt Ryan, not the Matt Ryan, are all asking Vidarian Lowe questions. Basically, are they committed to him? Are they going to bring in guys for a workout? Do Charles Leno or Bakhtiari going to come through? And here's what I would say. I hope they do sign a stopgap tackle, and I hope it is one of Charles Leno or David Bakhtiari. Beyond that, though, I don't see it happening because you have a couple questions, right? We just ran into this with Brandon Ayuk. Very different player, position, situation, yada, yada. But do they want to come here at the end of their career and move? How much money are the Patriots willing to give them? Okay, and what kind of shape are they in? If you're on the fence about retirement, my guess is you're not really inclined to wake up at 6 a.m. and do a bunch of squats and pass sets and get ready for an NFL season. Now, they might just be waiting till the end of camp to sign with the team. But to me, the ideal plan is to pursue one of those options and at the same time, keep Chuks Okorafor and Caden Wallace at left tackle while moving Mike Onwenu to right tackle and Nick Leverett or Layden Robinson at guard. So Onwenu from right guard to right tackle, replace him at guard, and throw everyone else at left tackle because you just need to get that figured out. Patriots offensive line would be fine if they didn't need a left tackle, but they do. And that's the issue here. So just instead of fighting a 2-front war at both tackle spots, hone in on the one and put all of your players and luck and bet and hopes into that position that eventually someone comes through. A couple more. Pascal, can we now say the development plan for Drake seems to be working and everyone else clamoring for it to be different should simmer down? First of all, yes, we should all simmer down, self-included. Second of all, the media space, and I would say the fan base, if you're being honest with yourselves, is a highly reactive, impatient group mindset. It's always been the case, right? Whether it was Drake Maye or anybody else. So this, to me, is not proof of concept because we also have no idea how Maye would have looked or played last week had he received more snaps. He might have looked great. He might have looked like crap. We don't know. We will never know. It's a counterfactual. That's the beauty or the ugliness of them. So what I would say is he looked good Thursday night. he was arguably better than Jacoby Brissett Tuesday in the joint practice. And that is a tiny bit of momentum, but it's not proof of anything working, because maybe had he gotten more snaps against Carolina, he would have looked good. And at that point, you would argue, well, you should have played him sooner, but we don't know. So I would just say he's in a better place now. That's a positive, and we just have to sit and wait and watch to find out what happens next. Jeff, if our offensive tackle situation is going to stink anyway, wouldn't you rather put Wallace in one of these spots so hopefully he can develop into a solid starter? I know I would. Yes. However, Jeff, history is not kind to rookie starters. And Andrew Thomas, for one, with the Giants, top 10 pick in a really good offensive tackle class, and is a complete disaster as a rookie. Now, he's one of the better tackles in the league right now. And when you look at Caden Wallace, it's not that, he's not a talented kid or doesn't have the physical tools. It's that he's not even a first-round pick. He's a third-round rookie who, after 4 years of playing right tackle at Penn State, is now kind of changing positions because the Patriots have him playing both sides. And normally that would be fine because you're not counting on a third-round rookie to start for you. But in your scenario, where history, no matter where you were drafted, is against you, just stepping in to block NFL edge rushers, guys like Nick Bosa, even Trey Hendrickson, who we'll see the first week, anyone else that they're going to see moving forward, it's going to be a problem. It's a huge jump, even coming from the Big Ten. So I would say, yes, as I said before, stick him at left tackle. Don't count on him as a starter, but at least make him an option and hope that he surprises you. Captain's insight. Can you rank the receivers 1 through 4 as it sits right now? Sure. Number 1, Pop Douglas. Number 2, Jalen Polk. Number 3, KJ Osborne. Number 4, choose your own adventure. Like, Javon Baker's had greater flashes, no question. He's also super raw. Tyquan Thornton, Kayshon Boutte had a drop last week. I still don't know how he consistently wins. He tends to have sticky hands, except for sometimes in the preseason. Isn't that fast? Isn't that quick? Doesn't separate particularly well. Jalen Reagor is making more hay as a returner, which kind of tells you what he is as a receiver, as does his entire career resume. So that's it. Dibbs, last one. With all the struggles at backup center, why haven't we heard anything of Charles Turner? He was a center for LSU. Dibbs, you're correct. Here's the thing, though. He's an undrafted rookie, and he's looked like it for most of camp. I would expect him to get a little bit more run, but the Patriots also opted for Liam Fornadell, ex-UFL, XFL, CFL, guard over him, and that tells you, in my mind, all you need to know. Breaking news. We've got a young, exciting underdog team in Boston that's making a run for the playoffs. No, it's not the Patriots. Well, not the Patriots yet. It's the Red Sox. And if you've been following this season, you know that the Red Sox have been a hotter ticket ever since the season started. I want you to get down to Fenway with Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, where you will find killer last-minute deals, all in pricing, including those pesky fees, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed. Guys, you've heard me talk about Game Time before. And look, whether you are in New England, whether you're down in New York, whether you're out on the West Coast, you can browse through the Game Time app to find any seat you want. Customize your spot, flash deals, zone deals. I've done this before, gone to a Yankee series. You could go to a makeup date, whatever it is to get you back into baseball with one of the best seasons we've had so far, especially for the Red Sox. And you can do this, again, with the lowest price guaranteed. I don't care where you get your tickets, but they should be now with the Game Time app, which you can download right now. Create an account and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. All you need to do is create an account and redeem this code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. It could be MLB, WNBA, concerts, etc. Just go to Game Time today. Find last-minute tickets in the lowest price guaranteed. All right, wrapping up here with Matt Judon. It's a funny thing that happens when you record a podcast in the morning, then there's a giant seismic trade at night. You don't feel super compelled to jump back on the podcast because this hadn't even come out yet, speaking of Wednesday's episode. Really good conversation with Doug, just none of it obviously touched on Judon. It was more about the joint practice, what we have learned through 3 weeks of training camp. This happens, I write a column, do TV, and then we go to a preseason game Thursday. I said, fine, I'll do this on Friday. Here's the bottom line about Judon. This trade was a good trade for the Patriots. I told you in this podcast, a couple executives told me they should get a third-round pick. That obviously got a lot more complicated when he made a mess on the practice field on July 29th, and we'll come back to this in a second. But ultimately, zooming all the way out, this type of trade is a dime a dozen in the history of the league. Rebuilding team, offloads an unhappy veteran, contract year, he's a good player. We don't really need you in the back end of your prime. We'll take the draft pick. Here you go. What this trade was really about is what it signaled publicly about where the Patriots are. In case anyone else missed this, the Patriots are in a rebuild. And for some reason, there's this idea out there that this is not year one of the rebuild under Elliott Wolf and Drake Maye. It's actually year 5. And let me just tell you this. If you believe that, you are either listening to media members who are arguing in bad faith or talking out of their ass. Because yes, Tom Brady left 5 years ago, and the Patriots have largely stunk since. But every single year under Bill Belichick, post Brady, they were trying to win. He was the head coach, he was the GM, and this was the organizational direction. Win now, win tomorrow, win always. And he succeeded in 21, but failed in 3 of those other 4 years since Brady left. Right now in year 5, there's a new coach, there's a new GM, and there's a new organizational direction. That's the definition of a rebuild. We are not trying to win today. We just gave up our best player, someone who have helped us win more games this year. We're not interested. We have both eyes on 2025 and 2026, and we want to do everything now to get there and be best positioned as possible to win then. That's why rookies are going to play. That's why they're stockpiling assets. That's why they're saving cap space and rolling it into those future years. This is the rebuild. This is year 1. Sacrificing today for tomorrow in a way the Patriots did not do in 3 of the last 4 years. Bill thought he was going to win. He just failed. This is about a new direction. That is a rebuild. That's what's going on right here. And Judon, look, he's 32. The trade was actually a birthday gift. If you believe this is something he wanted. He said he wanted to retire here and been clear about that, yada, yada. But personally, I'll miss watching him play. I'll miss talking to him. Ran into him once at an event in the Seaport. Good dude away. Was not one of these, like, I'm not talking to you outside of work, treat you like a human being. But obviously got grumpy around his money. And I don't blame him about that. Okay, so what ultimately happened here? People want to play the blame game. Personally, I think both parties got what they wanted in the end. Judon is going to get some amount of money from Atlanta, or at least more than he would have had in New England. The Patriots get a pick. They happen to rebuild. So I'm not interested in playing the blame game. But it is entirely possible, if you are upset as someone who wants to watch interesting football, as frankly I do, because we would be the losers in this situation, to blame someone. And I've defaulted amid all the uncertainty. I don't know how the trade negotiations went. We know pal Mike Giardi has reported they were far, far, far. That's 3 fars apart in negotiations, pretty much all the way up till the end. And so it's possible that Matt Judon just wanted this exorbitant, unreasonable amount of money in the end, $20 or more million for a 32-year-old guy coming off of a torn bicep, yada, yada. I don't know. I wish I did. So in that uncertainty, I defaulted to saying it's really a little bit more of the team's fault, if you want to place fault, because of how this was handled. You knew he was going to hold in as soon as the deal was restructured last year. A deal Bill Belichick did, by the way, not Elliott Wolf, not Matt Groh, because he was going to have a $6.5 million base salary. Way underpaid, even for a guy coming off the injury that he is. And you had the cap, and you had the cash, and you had control of the situation. You certainly knew his market probably before the draft, and you held on to him, thinking you could convince him otherwise. Even though in Baltimore, where he got, let's say, rankled publicly about his contract and went public with it on Twitter and social media and other places, and even went at one reporter, which, hey, maybe who's right, I don't know, that you could change his mind. They didn't, okay? And so working backwards, July 29th, he makes that mess. There's no practice the next day. Since then, Matt Judon returns, just 2 press conferences. The last one was kind of mealy-mouthed. And then on Monday, as he's still practicing, things have simmered down, but no progress is really being made. Jeremy Fowler, ESPN, tweets on Monday, multiple teams have contacted the Patriots about Judon. And you're like, yeah, right? Like, why? Why is this happening? But working back, keep that tweet in mind, because the next day is Tuesday. Eagles come in for joint practices, and Matt Judon participates. A lot of risk in there. Pads, physical drills, one-on-ones, 11s, all that. He participates in a way we never saw last year. But then he has, and you don't know this, a pre-scheduled press conference. He was supposed to speak along with Drake Maye and Ramondre and Michael Warner and all these guys. Doesn't do it. Maybe he knew in that moment he was getting traded. And maybe he knew all along, because that's why he was participating, to rehab his value, to rehab the image that he had damaged on July 29th, making a mess, which hurt the negotiations the Patriots may have been having even at that point, because teams go, he wants out of there. He's making a mess. You're gonna come to our terms. We're not going to give you a 3rd-round pick that you want. So maybe they told him in that off day when he didn't come back on July 30th and the whole team was off July 31st, chill, come back, play ball with us. And in time, we will turn this around, because time is on our side. He played ball. He got traded. He still doesn't have the contract from the Falcons. But in time, the Patriots won out. They waited Atlanta out and got their third round pick. That is a theory I would buy and will underscore theory. I don't know for a fact. But look, to go back to the rebuilding point, time is the beauty of a rebuild. Time is what the Patriots had. It's what they used. And again, if they got what they wanted to get worse this year and have more assets for the future, that's a win. Or as Drake Maye put it yesterday, a win-win. Okay. Patriots are going to practice on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I will be back either Monday night or Tuesday morning with a new episode. We'll have another one later in the week. We'll have more 4-minute drills with players. Holler at me if you have a suggestion. If you have not left a review or a rating, I'm mad at you. And you can fix that by doing that this week. Otherwise, it's been a good week, good times. Have a good weekend, all right?